Hello, my name is Emma Schuette, and I'm going to be presenting on hookah and the similarities and differences to the effects of cigarettes. So first, I'm just showing you a diagram of how traditional hookah works. So there's a hot piece of coal that is placed at the top of the pipe on above tobacco. And then when someone inhales in the mouthpiece, it pulls it through the stem and into the water where it vaporizes so that when someone inhales it, it's inhaling as a vapor. That's a little different from cigarettes as there's water involved. But I think this picture over here does a little bit better showing. But as you can see here, um, you can see the direction of where the air gets blown through. So the charcoal air passes through the charcoal, and then in the bowl there would be the tobacco and any flavored tobacco, which would give it that different flavors. Um, and then it gets pulled through into the water jar and then out the hose. A little bit about hookah's history. It originated in North India. In the 16th and 17th centuries, it spread from North India to Persia, the Ottoman Empire, and North Africa. Traditional hookah used a coconut as the bowl and bamboo tubes as the hose. Obviously, it's evolved since then. It was primarily used by males in the Middle East, but now it has risen in popularity where both females and males and anyone uses hookah. In the Western world, it's become more popular among young people with hookah cafes and bars dedicated solely to hookah. So there's two types of hookah, traditional hookah, which I've kind of talked about already, and electronic hookah. The difference is that electronic hookah doesn't use the hot charcoal, instead uses a rechargeable battery, sort of like a vape, where there's a liquid that has the um, nicotine and liquids very similar to a vape, but it gets sucked through the tube, through the water, just as traditional hookah does as well. And then it will come out the hose and into the mouthpiece for someone to inhale. So this study actually compared both electronic hookah and traditional hookah, and they found that both methods do cool the vapor to a lower temperature than traditional cigarettes or vaping. And that is a very key difference from hookah to cigarettes and vaping. But they did find that carbon monoxide levels were higher in those who were smoking traditional hookah, which kind of makes sense with the charcoal being used in traditional hookah. But electronic hookah or hookah had detrimental effects to vasculature, such as hardening the arteries, and that can be shown in this diagram as well from the study. So to compare hookah and cigarettes, like I mentioned, hookah does cool the vapors because it passes through the water versus cigarettes, you're inhaling a much hotter um, substance. With hookah, though, there is more ingested smoke and toxins. Um, this could be because that when you are smoking hookah, it's typically done over a much longer time, sometimes over an hour. Think you're hanging out at a bar or hookah cafe and you're just sitting around smoking instead of just taking a quick cigarette break. Both deliver large quantities of nicotine and have similar side effects, such as lung cancer, secondhand smoke effects from both being around hookah or being around cigarettes. Both lead to increased chances of heart disease and also offspring from pregnant users of either hookah or cigarettes. They're more likely to be small for gestational age or have a low birth weight. So here's some other effects from smoking hookah. They're kind of similar to cigarettes, but there is a few differences. So the first study I looked at was a carbon monoxide study. It studied comparing electronic cigarettes and regular cigarettes to traditional hookah. They did find that traditional hookah had carbon monoxide levels that exceeded both electronic hookah and cigarette hookah, both by 9 to 10 fold, or 10 times. And they also found that hookah had, and this carbon monoxide inhaled, had detrimental effects to endothelial function. The next compared alcohol use and non-alcohol users when they smoke hookah. If you don't know, alcohol can, being an alcoholic can also lead to being a person who is addicted to nicotine. So this is an important thing when looking at people's experiences using substances that could have potential for abuse. Um, Smoking hookah after drinking created a more positive smoking experience for the participants in the study. It increased the urge to smoke post-alcohol consumption, and that was when it was compared to the same person pre-alcohol consumption. But they did find that there was no change in carbon monoxide and nicotine levels compared to placebos. So this means that half the group drank alcohol, half the group drank placebo, and those who drank alcohol were no more or less going to have higher or lower levels of carbon monoxide and nicotine levels compared to those who didn't drink alcohol before smoking. The last study compared varenicline usage as a method to quit smoking hookah. This is Chantix or varenicline, as we talked about in class, and this is successful in helping cigarette smokers stop smoking. Obviously, it doesn't work in everyone, but it is a tool. However, this study found that it was unsuccessful in water pipe smokers, which is another term for hookah smoking. They found that the placebo and the varenicline had about the same results, and it was not statistically significant that varenicline would be helpful in helping hookah smokers quit. Here are my resources. Thank you.